Yeah, hey guys, welcome to my channel, Imoh Ekpo Capital, and here what I plan to do is break down business because I genuinely enjoy business. I enjoy how business works. So yeah, we're going to break down businesses by looking at the balance sheet, looking at the income statement, breaking down their strategy. And yeah, why am I doing this? Because I have no friends. I ain't got friends. I'm a weird person, and I support Arsenal. That's here. So yeah, I hope you enjoy it. Today we're starting with Nike, and I want to talk about how Nike's switching from a wholesaler strategy to a DTC strategy. I want to talk about how that affected their income statement, their balance sheet, and overall their business. So yeah, let's get into it. Yeah. So first of all, what is DTC? So DTC stands for direct to consumer, and that's where brands, they bypass the retailers. So they don't sell to the retailers at a wholesale price. So they bypass them and sell direct to you or me, the consumer. So the retailer will be like Foot Locker, JD. So they would sell it to them at a wholesale price in the other strategy, which is the wholesale strategy, and then they will sell it on to us. But DTC, the brand, will just bypass them and just go straight to the consumer. Yeah, so why would the brand switch from wholesale to DTC? So you get better control over your pricing. So imagine you're a luxury brand and you only want your products to be sold at a certain price range. When you go DTC, you have full control over how you want to price your product to keep kind of that perception. If you went wholesale, the retailer could discount your product to get it off the shelves, and you don't really have a say in that situation. Another reason is margins. When you go DTC, you generally get higher margins because you're not selling it at a wholesale price, so you keep more of the money. But DTC also comes with a lot of complexity, a lot of inventory risk as well. So yeah, so we're just going to break down how going into DTC affected Nike. So yeah, carrying on. Yeah, so in 2017, Nike launched its consumer direct Offence, and they promised a lot of things. They promised better innovation, better speed, and they promised to be more direct. Yeah, they were more direct because, yeah, of course it's DTC, so you can actually say they were more direct. I don't know how they wouldn't be more direct if they go direct to consumer. Anyways, but yeah, so they cut out the middleman, they cut out a lot of their partners, they cut out, the Foot Lockers, the JDs and whatnot, to focus on their own retail experience. So they open more retail stores and they focus a lot more on selling through the Nike website. Yeah, I'll show you the press release, the investor press release that happened. I look here a lot because my screen is actually here, so just in case you're wondering why I'm looking here a lot, I've got two screens. I've got a dual screen thing going on here. Yeah, so this was the investor press release. This was in 2017. Yeah, so there it is. 2x innovation, 2x speed, 2x direct. A lot of promises. It doesn't sound like an investor relations kind of press release thing. It sounds like a product launch. Like, Steve Jobs when he wears a turtlenecks and he goes, yeah, the iPhone does. I love Steve Jobs, by the way, so don't think I'm dissing him, but yeah, it was, as Nike do, everything is kind of branded in such a cool marketing thing way with Nike, and that's what they did here. So this is them trying to explain why DTC was the future. Basically, it's I'll link this in the description below, so if anyone wants to read this at some point, go ahead and do it. But yeah, this is when they announced it. They announced it in 2017. Yeah, so the date's in the corner here. You can't see because my face is there. My very lovely face is there. But yeah, anyways, let me go back here. So yeah, so they promised double-digit EPS growth, margin expansion, and high-digit single revenue growth. But how did this pan out? The numbers told a slightly different story. Income statement. So after Nike announced their DTC strategy, which was in 2017, so between 2017 and 2024, Nike had a 49% growth in revenue, which you can say that's a good thing. But the problem is the cost of goods sold increased just as much. So because of this, their gross margins were were virtually unchanged. They still stayed around that 44% gross margin mark, and the operating margins actually even decreased in that time period. So this is the thing. They said they wanted to go DTC to increase margins. They increased revenue, but margins didn't increase as you'd expect them to do when you go to a DTC strategy, because you're actually keeping more of the money. So your margins should, in theory, increase, but Nike's margins stayed completely flat. The operating margin actually decreased. So it's a bit weird. I'm actually gonna pull up the Excel. So yeah, this is where I was analyzing the income statement. This was a margin analysis that I did. So look, from 2017, which is here, they started at a 44.58% gross profit margin, and in 2024 they are in exactly the same place. Don't know if you can see it. Yeah. In 2024 they are in exactly the same place, 44.58. So yeah, this also I'll make available for anyone that wants to download this spreadsheet and have a play around with it. But yeah, they're in the same place in regards to gross profit. As you can see, as I said before, the operating margin actually dropped to 12.29 from 13.83. So yeah, didn't really work out well for them on the income statement side. Yep, so that's what happened on the income statement. So let's move over to the balance sheet. So yeah, balance sheet complexity. So one of the benefits of having the wholesale partners is that they deal with all the retail side of things. So they will deal with all the customer shipping, customer complaints. So when you try and take that over and bring that in-house into your own company, as you have to with DTC, you add a lot more complexity to your balance sheet. Let me say. So the main indicator of that was Nike's cash conversion cycle. So yeah, Nike's cash conversion cycle in 2017, it was 129.64. So your cash conversion cycle is how efficient you are at turning your inventory into sales. So that increased for Nike from 129.64 to 150.9, and that was mainly driven by a massive increase in inventory. So for the first time ever in 2022, Nike had $8 billion worth of inventory on their books. So they were having a bit of problems forecasting demand, and that's why their inventory breached that 8 billion mark for the first time in 2022. So yeah, that was a bit of a problem. Yeah, again, I'll switch to my Excel and I'll show you how that looks. So when we're talking about the balance sheets, these are all the balance sheet figures that I've done. Hope you can see this all. I should have probably cut out the other years, but I was just curious to see the full trend, because we're only really looking at 2017 and onwards. Over here we're looking at inventory. Yeah, inventory is here. So yeah, you can see when they announced the strategy in 2017. So that's at 5.55 billion. Well, 5.1 billion, let me say, rounded. And you can see the inventory keeps going up and up and up. And in 2020 it's hit the 7 billion mark. It's dropped down in 2021, presumably because this year was the COVID year. So this year is when COVID-19 happened, so a lot of weird things happened in that year. But then, as you can see, going on and on, they hit 8 billion in 2022 and then 8.4 billion in 2023, which for Nike, that's the first time that's ever happened. And that's because of the complexity of direct to consumer, because they're now stocking a lot more inventory. They're not the experts at demand forecasting like retailers like Foot Locker are. So yeah, they shot themselves in the foot, and that's what made the cash conversion cycle breach the 150 mark. So they became less efficient at turning over their inventory into sales. Okay, yeah, so there you go, that's the balance sheet. So what worked well? we've given Nike a lot of criticism so far over the DTC strategy, but what worked well? They actually tightened their receivables, which if they didn't, I'd be really concerned, because when you switch to DTC, you're taking the money directly from your consumers, so people are paying through your website. So if you don't tighten your receivables, there will be a huge problem. So yeah, Nike's receivables. So how I calculated this was using the DSO figures, so that's days sales outstanding. So how long did it take them to take money from customers? So that dropped from around, what's this? This is 45, I believe, and it dropped all the way down in COVID. Again, take the COVID year with a pinch of salt. But yeah, it still dropped overall. Even when you take out the anomaly of COVID, you can still see that sort of downward trend. It is rising slightly, so they do need to watch what's going on there. So yeah, so that worked well. So again, going back, so yeah, what happened after that? So I think when after Nike have seen these results, especially the cash conversion cycle figure of 150, because that's the highest it's ever been. And the inventory hitting 8 billion. So when Nike saw the results weren't that favorable, they backpedaled. They started to rebuild their relationships with Foot Locker, Dick's Sporting Goods. But the problem is, in that time that Nike sort of severed the relationships, they gave shelf space to other brands. So other brands like Hoka, and that unintentionally on Nike's end, that gave them a leg up. So it built their market share because they had more shelf space and ate into Nike's market share, which is one of their major problems today. The slides are also going to be available if you want to read the slides at some point. Yeah. So what's my final say on this issue? So I can see where Nike were coming from. So I see how D2C is attractive. You get more customer data, you can get better marketing efficiency because of the customer data, or you have tighter control over your brand, and you get more margins, which is the main thing. Higher margins is the main promise of D2C. But what Nike couldn't really foresee was their rise in cost of goods sold. So they did increase their revenue, but they couldn't increase their margin because their costs were rising just as fast, and that may be due to a number of things. So they had to, because of the DTC strategy, they'd probably have to get more retail stuff because now they're doing more retail. So that would increase their cost even higher. That would increase their cost more. Macro pressures. In the past 2 or 3 years, I'd say there's been a lot of macro pressures. So that would increase cost. I think inflation has been a big thing in the past 2 or 3 years. So a lot of supply side costs were rising, and I think Nike really felt the brunt of that. So yeah, a combination of macro pressures and the increased complexity of DTC, I think that increased their costs more than they expected, so they couldn't manage costs. So they weren't able to get the margins that they wanted from DTC, so their gross margins just stayed flat. So yeah, again, so when I keep saying when you go to DTC, you manage a lot more operationally, and that's the problem. I think with Nike, from what I remember of Nike, what made me love Nike was the feeling that Nike sold me. Nike sold me a feeling. Nike made me feel like if I wear Nike football boots, I'm gonna be like Cristiano Ronaldo, and that's why I'm a Nike fan. That's why I buy Nike. So when Nike moved to D2C, they have to start managing a lot more operationally. They have to start managing liquidity. They've got to start managing customer fulfillment. They've got to start managing retail ops, and that takes Nike away from the main thing they're good at. That's making you dream. So my final assessment of this is that Nike, they went into selling shoes rather than selling feeling. Nike, you don't sell shoes, you sell feeling, you sell dreams. Nike is a brand. So it makes sense why they've switched back now to working with the retail partners. I just hope that Nike can get back to what they do best, which is making you dream, really. I know it sounds a bit cliche, but That's Nike's speciality, and that's my final assessment of it. That's why I think the DTC went wrong. This is all the evidence I have here. I haven't actually gone through and scraped through the 10K, so it could be more detailed, but it's just a quick assessment for my first video. I hope you enjoy it. Hope you enjoy the slides. Hope you enjoy the model. I mean the Excel spreadsheet, so you can go and build a model if you want to. Yeah, we'll see you next time.